Hello everybody, this is Rob Redman of 3D World, and this video is just going to be a little introduction look at the Loudworks plant kits 1 to 4, which are reviewed in this issue. So really this isn't going to be a review video, although I will just say I really love the kits. They're fantastic, really adaptable, nice variety, and the quality's really quite something special. I just wanted to show you how it works, because in the review I say how easy it is to kind of customize what you're doing, both for render time and for in the viewport. Just so you know, I'm using the Cintiq, so if my mouse movement looks a bit odd, that's because I'm using the Wacom 24-inch Cintiq. Okay, and it's just set up very simply at the moment, just kind of almost the default settings, except I've got middle and right click set up on the little toggle. Okay, so once you've installed the plugin, it lives up here in its own menu rather than inside the plugins. So I'm just going to click it, and for now I'll just open that up so you can see what we've got. There are some help files about, and you can add a plant individually, but the best way of working with it seems to be to use the browser. So let's just open up this browser and see what we can do. So we've got the standard kind of browser controls and a huge amount of detail in the thumbnails. What's really nice is it gives you a kind of human reference, so you can see how big the tree species is, and if you hover over it you get a really nice little description, not just of you kind of like the background of the plant, but also you get the kind of the age details and size and things like that as well, which is really good. So to actually add one to your scene, all you need to do is pick one and double click it. So I'll choose a reasonably small plant. Let's go for a sugar maple. So just double click that. I'll shut down the browser window, and you can see we have this kind of, it looks like a metaball. It's more like a hull. So in fact, I think if you look down here you can see it's called a convex hull, and that's basically taking the volume that the leaves and branches will fill and creating a mesh around it. Now let's just set up a quick render scene. 8x600 is fine. I'll leave geometry on the anti-alias settings, but let's turn on a little bit of GI, and I'll just set that to 2.2. Now I'm just using a simple sky dome setup here, so for my GI I'm just going to go for an HDRI image. Change my gamma to 2.2, and I'll leave it like that, and I'm just going to turn on so you can see the differences as I'm working the interactive render region. So let's just lift that up, and we should find that we'll get a bit of a render. Now it's taking longer than you might have thought, because it's actually rendering the full geometry. You can see down here in render mode in the attributes manager for the sugar maple, we've got some options. We've got full geometry, which is all the leaves individually, and we've got convex hull. So if we want to work quickly with kind of placements, we can use that option just to kind of get all our trees in the scene as fast as we want. But if we want to see how it's going to look in full detail, we can do that too. And I can just increase the level of detail here, and I'm going to zoom in just so you can see a little bit of what the final geometry looks like. I'll zoom right in so you can see that. And while that's rendering away in the background, we can do the same in the editor. So we've got the convex hull, which is the kind of metaballs blob again. We've got full render geometry in there, and there's also a skeleton option, which I'll show you in just a minute. You can make these kind of snap to the document scales themselves. But really the best thing about this whole plugin is the two drop downs here. So we've got the variant 1 and summer. Now you can probably guess that underneath that summer one we have a 4 options. We've got summer, spring, autumn and fall, and winter, and then under the variant 1 we have a couple of variants for various ages of tree. So it does grow and it does change shape as it ages. And what this is really good for is if you're doing kind of a ArcViz work and your client says, yeah, that looks fantastic, but it's a bit too sunny, I want to see what it would look like in the winter, or I want to see, you know, what this building is going to look like with all those kind of fall colours around it, then you can do it with, you know, just a couple of clicks rather than having to go out and swap all the textures and all that kind of thing. So the tree comes with all the different textures available up here, but it automatically swaps between them as you make those decisions. So I'm going to just stop this. You've seen kind of what's going on with it. I'll turn that interactive render off and I'll go back to the sugar maple, and if I now go to editor mode, skeleton, you can see this is really flat kind of looking, but actually it's got a lot of depth. So even though the individual leaves and the branches don't have any depth to them, the model itself does. It's not just a billboard, and it does allow you to see very well kind of what that volume is going to be like, where the branches are, and you know what's going on. And it's a very, very fast, you know, I can whiz around it without any problems here, as you can see. And this is a really good way to work. If you're going to use, say, let's just dump that into a MoGraph cloner, it means you can set up kind of a courtyard or something really quite easily. So let's say I wanted to have a garden with kind of a square, a boundary of these trees around it. I could do that. Let's go for 6 aside, and we'll probably make this just a little bit bigger. Let's go for 1000 by 1000, and we can already see now that we've got this kind of little orchard, and using this preview mode, this kind of skeleton, you can see that we can still move around the scene and it's not too bad. And you're looking at still quite a lot of information there. If you find it slows down, you do always have the option of going to convex hull. And the one thing about convex hull, which is quite useful for, especially if you're using the MoGraph tools for modelling and layout, which I do quite a lot, is that, let's just increase this a bit more. Okay, now I quite like to use the random effector just to kind of change these a bit. So even though we could go in, we could add multiples of the sugar maple. In fact, if I do that now, if I take the sugar maple, control click and drag, so that's a second version of the maple, I could then maybe make this one a full grown one. And you can see there's already a bit of variety in there now. Now I've done that. Let's just back off. In fact, that's probably too full grown. Let's go for variant 2 young. So they're similar. You can imagine they were planted at the same time, but there's some differences. Now that's one way of doing it, which is good, and I would certainly recommend doing that. In fact, let's give this one a full colour scheme so you can see which ones are which more clearly. And we should find that we have quite a nice bit of variation now. But if we go to the random effector, we can choose which parameters. Now I'm not going to change anything in the Y, I want them all to sit on the ground, but we could change the amount of space between them, although 50 is probably quite a good number. Now we can also change the scale. Now I'm going to do this just in the Y, so I'm going to put 0.5, and let's see. Now the clever thing, the root of each tree, the axis point of each tree, is right at the bottom of the trunk. So if we change the scale, that's probably a bit much. Let's go for just 0.1, I think, for now. You can see that they're growing from the ground. They're not kind of intersecting the ground and having kind of weird problems there, which is really good. And again, with rotation, you only need the heading setting here, but you can change them around like so. And this gives you a kind of a nice little square garden full of these trees. I wouldn't worry too much about the overlapping. I mean, that's a matter of taste. But we could go in and just increase that again if we wanted to, or reduce the amount of clones. Obviously this isn't a MoGraph tutorial, this is really an introduction to what you can do with these trees. So let's go right in, have a look here, and I'll do a really quick render. I'm just going to make these, in fact I'll just render them as they are like that. So I'll pause the video just because there's quite a lot of geometry there, and I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so this isn't the prettiest render in the world, but you can see the kind of the leaf density and the the kind of nice shapes you get with the alphas on the materials. So that's been a little overview really. I just wanted to show you just very quickly what you can do with this, how it works, and the ease with which you can work. So I hope that's been of some use and interest, and I'll see you all again soon.